All video gone. Mid-flight. Just out there in the middle of nowhere. What's up everybody? It's been a while since I've done this and I'm hopping on here to tell you about my FPV chaotic experience. If you know me, then you know that I've recently gotten into FPV and I'm obsessed with it already. I started out with this little cine root, which is a 3-inch drone, and I just got this 7-inch drone, and I'm also going to be building my own 5-inch drone. So I'm having a lot of fun with this, and it's been a huge learning process and a lot of growing and progression, which is really fun. This has the GPS rescue right here. The reason why this has that is because it's made to go far and fast. If something were to happen, then the coordinates do show up in your goggle, and it also is able to give you information such as how far away it is from you and how fast it's going, all with the GPS system. So the fact that this has GPS rescue and the cine root doesn't was a big difference for me. Alright, so I know you guys are here for the story and for the chaotic situation that happened, so let's get into that. We're up at this beautiful spot. We are on top of a knoll, so the mountain was kind of like this, and there's just a small area where you can camp, and you have incredible views of Suction and the other mountains in the area. I got ready to fly, and I had everything set up. And my goal was to do a few laps around us, a few small laps, and just kind of warm up and build my confidence for the longer range flying and just kind of work my way out. I lifted off and everything was going great. The drone was flying properly, everything was functioning. There were no issues with the battery, with the signal. That was a big thing that I was paying attention to, was the signal and making sure that I had enough signal as I was flying around, and that was all good. Here's where it gets chaotic. I am probably on my second or third lap around the knoll that we run, and I get directly over top of it, so I'm flying directly over it, and the video and the goggle just goes out and it's just black screen. Oh my gosh. I just started freaking out and panicking. I have no idea what's happening. This has never happened to me before. I've never had the camera or the video just go out like that. I've lost signal before, and what happened when the signal goes out is the fail-safe engager in the drone, and the drone pretty much just drops out of the sky and just goes down from that. What was happening here though was that the video was just out. I could still see that the drone was still flying because of the information in the goggle, and I could see that it was still going, that the battery was still there, the signal was still there, but there was no video, so I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see what the drone was doing, I couldn't see where I was going, and at this point it was just flying away. Off into the distance. A minute and a half goes by, and I'm kind of getting my band together and trying to figure out how to handle this situation. My friend Matt and also my roommate just puts his hand on my shoulder just to let me know that he's there, which was a very calming effect. My best friend Tiana was nearby, and she was just sending me good energy. Meanwhile, I'm flipping out while I'm still in the goggle. After a couple of minutes, I lift up the goggles and I'm like, hey, do you guys know where the drone went? And they were like, it went that way. And I was like, okay, that's not super helpful, but thank you. I put the goggles back on, and I am running through all of the scenarios in my head and just kind of figuring out what I need to do. At this point, I realized that there is information in the goggle that is helpful for me to get the drone back, and I can see that the distance the drone is from home base was 550 meters, and I could see the numbers moving, which meant it was still flying. Meanwhile, When I lost control of the drone, I kept the throttle up at where it was, and so the throttle stick just stays where it is if you don't touch it. I did that because I didn't want to disarm it and then have it drop into the middle of nowhere. After weighing my options, I knew that I had to flip the failsafe and give that a try because that was my last resort in getting this drone back to me. One thing that I knew was that the failsafe is kind of a gray area where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it doesn't work very well. You can kind of see when I lose control, which is when I fly directly over Earth, and then it just kind of starts floating away. For a while it's just floating and floating and flying as I'm trying to figure out what to do, and as it's flying away it starts like this and just slowly tilt until it's almost on its side, like a 90-degree angle, and it's kind of crazy to see that and to see that it just kind of tilts over and then it's just flying away like that. And I flipped the failsafe, and once again, I have no video in the goggles, so I didn't know if it was gonna work, and I didn't know if it was working because I couldn't see what the drone was doing. The coolest part was seeing what happened when I flipped the failsafe, and you can see exactly when that happened because the drone goes from this and then it levels out completely, does a complete 180, and then just starts flying directly back towards me. And it was incredible to go back and watch that and see how accurate it actually was and how effective it was. If I hadn't had that failsafe, then I probably would have lost this drone forever. However, I looked at the numbers at how far away it was from the home base, and those numbers were getting smaller and smaller. So I was like, oh my gosh, the drone is coming back, like keep your ears and your eyes out for it, look for it. I'm watching those numbers get smaller and smaller, so it's going 500 meters, 400 meters, 300 meters, and I know that it's coming somewhat back towards me. At around 100 meters, I'm realizing that the drone is getting pretty close, and I'm also realizing that I am going to have to land the drone on this little mountain knoll by line of sight. Landing line by sight is actually trickier than you might think, because when you fly FPV, you are seeing firsthand what the drone is doing and you're able to be the drone essentially. I have switched the failsafe off and I am in full control of the drone again, and I'm attempting to land it by line of sight. I actually hovered it into some trees and tried to back out and get it closer to it, but it crossed into a tree and just fell from that. Luckily, it was only about 20 feet away, and my friend was able to grab it, and it all worked out beautifully. All in all, it was a crazy experience to have on my first attempt to fly long range with this big, expensive drone, and I actually learned a lot from that experience, and I'm super grateful, because I kind of had a worst case scenario happen on the first flight, so now I know what to do if that were to happen again, and now I know what that situation is like. That was that, and it is a story to tell my grandkids someday, and I'm just really stoked that I got the drone back safely. Thank you so much for watching and for listening to this grand story about my FPV experience. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more situations like this, so just stay tuned. See you guys next time.